Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to Discipline Before Dishonor. Now today we're trying something new for the channel. We're going to be trying reacting to a health-related video. And there's all sorts of health-related videos that we can react to over the lifetime of this channel. More coming every day with the advances in sciences that are happening. So over time we'll react to Andrew Huberman, we'll react to, neuroscientists, nutritionists, athletes, and we'll get the skinny on the latest updates with health-related content. So let's try it out. As you can see, I have Susanna here with me.
Hello.
And we're going to be reacting to a Dr. Ekberg video. The title of the video is Top 10 Dangerous Foods That RFK Jr. Just Banned. And Dr. Ekberg was actually the man who introduced Susanna and me to intermittent fasting as well as the ketogenic diet, which is pretty huge. It changed our lives. When was it that we first found him?
I think it was around 2021.
Around 2021. We did it as a preparedness measure for the pandemic. We knew we weren't going to get the jab, so we decided instead to take the, lifestyle approach to enhance our immunity, and he helped us with that. Now, let's begin.
Hello health champions. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 foods that have been shut down or are about to be restricted by RFK. And finally, after having talked about these issues for decades about how food isn't food anymore and how we're being poisoned from the inside, finally there is a US Secretary of Health for the first time ever who agrees more with actual practitioners of health rather than the mainstream medical establishment. And with health practitioners, I mean those who help people get healthy, like chiropractors, like naturopaths, like people in functional medicine, and also those few wonderful heretics of the medical profession, the medical doctors who have gone against the mainstream of their profession because it doesn't work. And now finally, we have a US Secretary of Health who speak the language that we do. The first thing he's trying to get rid of is a bunch of artificial colors, such as red 3, red number 40, yellow number 5, and blue number 1. And these have been already banned in many countries, or even most countries around the world, because it's well recognized how dangerous they are and how much harm they do. They're strongly linked to hyperactivity, especially in kids, to behavioral issues, and also to allergies. And it causes thyroid cancer in rats, and that's why red number 3 has been banned from cosmetics. So get this, the FDA has a clause called the Delaney Clause that prohibits, that outlaws any additive that is known to cause cancer. So now you can't put it on your skin since 1990, but you can still eat it. But now, since many manufacturers are anticipating that it will be outlawed, now very quickly they can start reformulating and get rid of it. So
Thank God you can't put it on your skin anymore, but we'll still let you eat it, eh?
Yeah, well, good riddance.
Yeah. Oh my God. The logic or the lack thereof. It's astounding. Alright, let's get back to it.
what that's telling us is that this stuff is not hard to get rid of. It's just a matter of wanting to. It's not expensive, it's not difficult, it's just lazy, and if they don't have an incentive and if nobody tells them what's healthy or not, then they're just going to do whatever they've been doing. Number 2 is Kennedy wants to get rid of SNAP junk food, and SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps. And here Kennedy says that tax-funded programs should promote health, not disease. What a concept. We shouldn't pay for people to get sick. So he wants to stop soda, candy, and ultra-processed foods from any government program because it is known, very well known, that sugar causes obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, and doesn't only cause it, but it does so especially in low-income communities. So if we use tax funds to pay for junk food for people with food stamps. Now they're going to get sick, and then we get to pay for it again with their medical bills. But now, of course, the critics call it paternalistic, and it says that this unfairly targets the poor. And I'm just curious, what's unfair about trying to keep someone healthy? Why should we pay for junk food? Should we pay for booze? Should we pay for cigarettes? Where do you draw the line to not call it unfair? I think it's totally obvious that tax funds should go toward keeping people healthy. But it
Fucking based, eh? I mean, obviously. It is pretty weird that we wouldn't let them spend this money on cigarettes and booze. But the moment we make them spend it on healthy foods, society draws this arbitrary line and calls it paternalistic.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Like,
hey, we should try to get on food stamps for healthy food.
I know,
damn.
like, shit, if they're gonna get us vegetables and meat, like, let's sign up today. Oh, snap.
It just goes to show, in my opinion, that we have, as a country, as a society, and as an entire Western culture, we have absolutely no concept of what food is anymore. Number 3 is high fructose corn syrup. And Kennedy wants to discourage and reduce the use in schools and in government programs. So again, if we're using tax funds for this, then it shouldn't be to make people sicker. And high fructose corn syrup is very clearly one of the major problems with obesity and the metabolic disease pandemic that we see in the world today. But this issue becomes even more complicated now because of corn subsidies, because the entire industry of corn is subsidized. And as Kennedy points out, that makes corn artificially cheap. So junk food becomes artificially cheap. And on the counter side, we have, of course, the corn lobbyists and the big food companies who say that there will be massive profit implications. And I don't doubt that in any way, but that's not a reason that we don't have to do something about it. Item number 4 is about seed oil. So Kennedy wants to get rid of or restrict the use of canola, soybean, corn, sunflower, and safflower oil. And why is that? Because they are sky high. They are so rich in omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, which promote inflammation and contribute to the obesity and metabolic disease epidemic. So the more of these omega-6 oils we use, the more we're going to see of obesity, insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and dementia. So Kennedy wants to remove these types of oils from school lunches. We shouldn't give these to the kids, but instead, we should give them healthy fats. We should replace those with olive oil, with coconut oil, and with butter. I could hardly believe my ears when I saw that. I don't think it's less than 100 videos that I have talked about the healthy fats being extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, and butter. And here we hear it again from the US Secretary of Health. This is very, very hopeful.
And it's funny because mainstream media would make it a definite point to tell you that RFK undermines science, undermines public health, and that he is a fringe conspiracy theorist with unacceptable perspectives on these things.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing to see the dichotomy of like what a person actually is and what they actually stand for, and what media tells you they are and what they stand for. It's like Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing about seed oils is that it's really interesting that something that was produced mainly to grease up machinery was suddenly
Fit for human consumption.
Yeah, you know, it greases up the machines, so it stands to reason it's safe for human consumption.
Kind of reminds me of margarine. Originally, when margarine was developed, it was designed to fatten up turkeys for sale, but they noticed that it was causing cardiac arrest in the chickens, literal heart attacks. So what do? They recolor and remarket margarine as a butter alternative for humans. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Hey, if it kills the turkeys, it'll kill people. Yeah.
Logic.
It's really funny, you know. just observing it. Like, you have Trump doing all these good things, you know, getting illegal immigrants out of the country, stabilizing the economy, improving trade relations abroad, and eliminating waste and fraud in the federal government. And yet all of this is met with utter disdain and contempt from the mainstream media. You gotta wonder who owns the media. Why are they perpetuating this anti-Trump narrative? And why do they also apply it toward RFK and everything he wants to do as the Secretary of Health? The smart money is on the fact that the interests which own, the corrupt interests which own these companies and have these agendas also own the media, right? So the pharmaceutical companies brought to you by Pfizer, right? Or the food companies also, they lobby heavily for positive media coverage. So it's entirely possible that the corrupt food companies who are sickening all of North America are the ones paying mainstream media to slander RFK.
Yeah, that's because, well, their profits are gonna plummet when people are suddenly not getting as sick anymore.
Indeed. Yeah, very true. All right, let's get back to it.
Yes.
But of course, on that note, the mainstream nutrition so-called experts claim that the polyunsaturated fatty acids, the vegetable oils that have made us so sick that we've been eating since the 1960s, 70s now, they promote those and say that they are beneficial when replacing saturated fat. So again, they fall into the fallacy of throwing all sorts of fats on the bandwagon and saying that all saturated fats are bad.
It's good to see you, Simon. Welcome, buddy. And don't worry, even if your political views are different, if you value health, then this is the place for you, buddy.
Hey, Simon.
Which, of course, is not true. The natural fats that we just talked about, coconut oil and butter, and even cooking oils from lard and tallow and goose fat, those are very, very stable when they come from a healthy source and we don't massively overheat them, then they are stable and safe and healthy fats. Food number 5 Kennedy wants to get rid of is ultra-processed foods out of the schools. So he thinks we should no longer serve these things to kids, things like frozen pizza, chicken nuggets, sugary cereals, chips, and shelf-stable desserts. And what makes something shelf-stable, that it can sit there on the shelf for months and months, of course, is sugar and seed oils and preservatives and additives. That's what makes it shelf-stable. And these foods are clearly linked to things like chronic inflammation, obesity, cognitive decline, and early mortality. And the state of Arizona has set as a goal to phase these out and get rid of them by 2026. And this, of course, is strongly endorsed by Kennedy. And instead of junk food, we should have a diet that's based on whole foods so that we can start reducing these chronic diseases that are now starting in childhood. And
I think that one of the most important things to remember about this topic is that, you know how in Europe, they still generally accept gender roles? You know, men are men, women are women. They have their natural proclivities. They have their duties to a household. Over here in North America, Canada and the United States alike, you see those gender norms kind of melting, and it's like we deny basic biological truths. And there is something to glean here, something to perceive that's very important. Over in Europe, they still hold some truths sacred. But over here, the difference between us and them, we fluoridate the water here, and we also have these ultra-processed foods and all the banned chemicals in food here that they, over there in Europe, generally ban. So over here, now correlation is not necessarily causation, but it's entirely possible that the abject lunacy that you see from the radical left over here in North America could be a byproduct, a symptom of the overall disease that is ultra-processed food and our lack of standards concerning the regulation of it. Right?
Fair.
That's
I
my...
would say fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about the fact that there are some American products that are sold in Europe, like Fruit Loops and Skittles, for example.
Yeah, they don't have the harmful dyes that we have here, right?
Yeah, so it's not impossible to produce them and have them be sold and, enjoyed, sorry for the fumbling, without all the poison. So why not just do it here too?
Yeah.
Why poison your own people and then sell the same product elsewhere without the poison? It makes no sense.
I think it's because at a certain point, the people who run these corporations, the pharmaceutical and food companies, they stopped viewing people as people, started viewing them as customers. Consumers, cash cows to be milked, even at any expense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I honestly think that's because in the UK they recently had a bill passed that officially stated men are men, women are women, and you can't change your biological sex. And it seems like everywhere in Europe that's the consensus, but over here people are so crazy, Democrats get so radical that they are kind of I honestly think the only variation between Europe and North America that we should draw attention to justify the severe dichotomy and difference between the two sets of values is ultra processed food and our worst standard of it. It really seems like it could be the key culprit in the neurological degeneration of North Americans. We have the highest obesity in the world. We have the greatest rates of mental illness. Now, if you're looking at government corruption and tyranny, yes, Europe matches us quite well in that regard, right? We literally have Germany trying to ban a political party, the AfD or something. Obviously, that's tyrannical, dangerous, scary, anti-democratic. But they do at least adhere to biologically accepted gender norms and stuff. So something to think about, right? Maybe these processed foods are doing more damage than we think to North Americans, much more.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the school lunches go, that's an absurd abomination to be serving pizza and frozen nuggets in school. I know from my own experience that if I eat pizza, I become comatose for the rest of the day. Like I can't think or function. I get horrible brain fog, and to be fed that in school when you're required to function and focus.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
No wonder, what is it, like 25% of kids at schools don't pass reading tests?
It's
like
what I
can't
heard.
read.
What I heard about the statistic is that it's roughly 25% of United States citizens cannot read above like a grade 10 level.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the whole, and it's only going to get worse because now we're going to have all of those COVID lockdown children who couldn't go to school adding to that statistic. So it may be more like 35% of US citizens who can't read proficiently in like 5 years.
And that's horrifying because if you're unable to read properly, then you can't think properly or understand information properly.
Yeah, and if you can't disseminate information, then your legs are wide open for the dick of tyranny to go right in your ass. Wow. Anyway, let's keep going. You know, it's, well, Jordan Peterson says all the time that, like, your ability to read and write determines your ability to think critically. Mm-hmm. So if you sabotage that, you create a generation of slaves.
They're just ready to receive whatever narrative is presented in the media, and then they're done.
Yeah, it's scary.
Number 6 he wants to get rid of is artificial sweeteners. And if you have watched some of my videos in the past, you know that I always put these artificial sweeteners as some of the worst toxins ever. And they include aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, and acesulfame K, or acesulfame potassium. And we know that they're linked to potential carcinogenicity and that they disrupt both the metabolism and your biome. And today, unfortunately, we can find them in thousands or even tens of thousands of different foods, such as diet soda, chewing gum, yogurt, flavored water, meal bars, and even chewable kids' vitamins. So he wants to start with educational campaigns, even if there is no formal ban on these things yet. Number 7 is GRAS loophole reform, and GRAS stands for generally recognized as safe. And this dates back to 1958, when they felt that not everything should need to be tested and proven. Some things were just kind of self-evident. And they were referring to things like vinegar, salt, and baking soda that you shouldn't have to test. You should just generally recognize them as safe. But in the continuation of that, in 2025, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of toxic synthetical chemicals in our foods. And here's what this little loophole is all about. So as a producer, you can self-certify. You don't have to go through some third-party certification. You can hire your own expert. And if you pay this expert enough and he says, yeah, I think this is safe, then you can start using that chemical. And get this, you're not even required to notify the FDA. You don't have to tell them a thing. You just have to hire this expert and they say it's safe, and now you start producing. And as a result of this loophole, there are now thousands of substances, of toxic compounds that have not gone through proper testing. And I've done many videos in the past where I point out how these toxic substances are banned in most countries, and yet we continue to use them. And these are things like BHA, BHT, which is a synthetic antioxidant. We have titanium dioxide, which is a whitening agent. We have a preservative called propyl gallate, and we have flavor enhancers and emulsifiers by the hundreds. And these are all toxins that have been let into the system by this GRAS loophole, and that I have pointed out in my videos and that are banned in most countries. So Kennedy says that this loophole puts the public's health at risk and it erodes consumer trust. So he proposes that all new compounds should have mandatory FDA notification. You have to tell the FDA, and you have to have third-party testing and a review of all GRAS determinations. He says this should especially pertain to novel and synthetic compounds, and if there's any known risks or issues with them. So if they're linked to cancer, ADHD, dysbiosis, or something like that. And that on all products, there should be full transparency and third-party testing, and that you should not be able to pay for your own experts. Item number 8 is raw milk, which he is in favor of. So he says that it is nutrient rich, it is closer to nature, and it offers immune benefits. So basically, when you get raw milk, it has all the enzymes that you need to break it down. It has certain bacteria that support your gut function and your immune system, and therefore it's much closer to nature. Most people who have problems digesting dairy is because the dairy is pasteurized. And of course,
Oh, yeah. So most people who are lactose intolerant or whatever, if they didn't pasteurize the milk and heat the enzymes out of it that help you to digest it, then you could probably break down the lactose just fine.
Probably, but you know, what was it? Like 0.001% of people had a bad reaction to raw milk, so... Yeah,
back in... What she's referring to is back in the 1980s or 1990s, something like that. The FDA determined that 0.007% of people, it was small. It was 0.07 or something. 0.07% of all people who ingested raw milk experienced gastrointestinal upset. And therefore, we must ban the sale of raw, full-fat milk. Because 0.07% of people have a sore little tummy after drinking it.
And what's really funny is I wonder what the percentage of lactose intolerant people is now, because I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 30% of people who don't react well to pasteurized dairy.
Yeah.
So it was one of those instances of looking at a minuscule problem, trying to solve it, and creating a massive problem in the process.
That's like having a creaky staircase, and you're like, hey, I can fix that. And then you remove the whole staircase from the building. I fixed it. There you go. How do I get upstairs? It isn't creaking anymore, is it? I fixed your problem. Like, what the fuck? Ungrateful swine. You know? Anyway, let's get going again. That is funny though, eh? Crazy.
It is. And on the topic of the certification, the grass certification, that is also really funny because you can pay for an expert to say that, you know, your food can contain parts of, let's say, like yoga chemicals or, mattress bits or rat shit, for example. But, you know, in small doses, it doesn't seem harmful.
I
so
think
it's
the
fine.
I think the yoga mat chemical was styrene, and I remember Subway came under fire for that several years ago, and they were able to remove it from their bread in a heartbeat. So it makes you wonder why it was even there in the
Why
first
put it
place.
there? Yeah.
The population. A sick population is a profitable one, right? An addicted population is a profitable one.
Yeah, but it's really crazy that for this long you could just pay for an expert to say that something that is completely synthetic and untested is safe and put it in food.
It makes me wonder about chocolate bars. Polyricinoleate is a fairly new addition to chocolate bars, and they use it as an additive to reduce the need for actual cocoa in the chocolate. It's synthetic chocolate that adds to the mass of perceived chocolate in the bar. That's what polyricinoleate is. So we have to wonder, did they use the grass loophole to get that approved? And could it be extraordinarily dangerous for people? And the thing is that you have to remember, as a culture here in North America, we have Halloween, we have Christmas. We bomb kids with these foods every year, right? And people could be unknowingly giving themselves chronic diseases, mental illnesses, even potentially the big bads like cancer and neurodegenerative disease, ignorant to the fact that it's what they're choosing to eat that could be doing it, right?
And it's completely turned on its head, because how can you put something in food that isn't rigorously tested if you don't know that it's safe? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Like, you do the testing first and then you add it to food when you know it's safe? And then that also stands to reason that they do the same thing with medications. That they, instead of testing a medication for 10 years, let's say, to determine whether it's actually going to be safe for people, they add things in, and then if the medication causes side effects that are too harmful, well, then they go, oopsies, we'll just take it off the shelves and fix it.
And what's really scary is that they've applied this same sort of blasé approach to even vaccinations. During the pandemic, a lot of people don't know this. When they rolled out the vaccines and threatened to fire everybody who refused to take it, the vaccines were not approved. They were not tested. What they had was emergency use authorization, which meant it might kill you, but the ends justify the means of forcing you to take it. So, I mean, you know, and what's really crazy is that even some European countries mandated the vaccine. Not many. It was mostly a North American zealotry problem where we fired people and forced them to take it and robbed them of their livelihood if they didn't.
Yeah, in Europe, a lot of European countries threatened to fire people,
and never
but
did.
They didn't.
And you know what? It kind of plays into our prior theory where we said that in North America, there is increased zealotry, increased radical ideology because of these chemicals in the food that RFK is trying to get rid of. It's possible that the strong system of ideological control that the government has enjoyed exercising for the past couple of decades, the Democrats particularly, it's possible that they wouldn't be able to manipulate people as much. People wouldn't be so malleable, so crazy if these chemicals weren't in the food. So we're not just threatening the profit margins of companies, we're threatening the established psychological control network of the powers that be. And that is what potentially Trump and RFK could bring about. So this, you know, it could end up being the greatest administration in the history of the United States of America. For more reasons than one.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep it going. This is fun.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
All the species who drink mother's milk is to feed their babies, and of course that milk is never pasteurized. So when we pasteurize it, when we heat it, we change it. It's not the same thing anymore.
It's good to see you, Slim. And yeah, you're 100% right, buddy. You are 100% right. I always tell myself if I ever get cancer, the first thing I'm doing is going carnivore or keto to deal with it. I'm going to fast every day. I'm going to do carnivore. I'm going to do it religiously, and I'm just going to starve out the cancers.
There's also something to be said about prevention, because if you do those things before you get a cancer diagnosis, you greatly increase your chances of just not getting cancer in the first place.
Very true.
Unless it's caused by some chemical interference. Careful there.
Yeah, like there could be like, radiation or whatever. But yeah, if I had to fight cancer, those steps that you just go on a keto diet, low carb or none at all, just do carnivore and fast often and fast long. Yeah, that's our go-to gold ticket.
Yeah, I mean it could also just be pollution in the ground and the pesticides used and water pollution.
But then the question becomes, if you do the right things and exercise the right habits, can you outperform the chemical's ability to grow that cancer? Can you defeat, through fasting and keto, the growth of tumors caused by environmental factors like pesticides?
Well, that's why a lot of people like to do a detox once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Just as a preventative measure. Yeah.
Last 6 months, Slim, you belong, buddy.
Oh, good job.
Good job. We're proud of you. All right, let's get back to it.
And Kennedy says that the current restrictions on raw milk is a form of government overreach. He says that we should allow sales of milk across state lines, and we should not just allow it for pets. We should sell it to the end consumer, humans, including humans, and we should protect local farmers who provide this product. Food number 9, he wants to stop sugary cereals and yogurt. So a few examples would be kids yogurt such as Go-Gurt, or flavored yogurt such as Yoplait Strawberry Banana, kids cereals such as Trix and Fruit Loops. And he says that he's very opposed to these being marketed as health products, as health foods, when in fact they often have more sugar than desserts, and they're just full of chemicals and artificial colors and flavors. And therefore, he suggests that we should not offer these in schools and in government-funded programs. So,
and then they give kids ADHD diagnosis and medication when the approved food for kids that's viewed as healthy is stuff that just gives them a giant sugar high and makes it impossible for them to sit still.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
It's very true. As the diet standard has gotten worse, we've seen increases. We've seen increases in ADHD, but the people who coined the existence of ADHD, the doctors, the scientists, they came out and said it's not real. So what we're really observing is behavioral changes coming from food, and then they're drugging those behavioral changes away while not addressing the root cause of the food being the problem.
They give a firm diagnosis of something to a symptom of a problem. It's the hyperactivity and the inability to focus and sit still is not the end result. It's a symptom of a problem, and the problem is the food.
They drug the symptom, but not the disease itself.
Yeah. Well, that is what the medical industry is very good at. I mean, they don't want to make you healthy ultimately. What they want is just to keep you coming back for more medications, since one medication is going to give you side effects that you then need more medications for.
Yeah, somebody said it yesterday or something like it. They said there's like no profit in cures. Like why cure a customer in a day when you can treat them for a lifetime?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Good point. Good point, sweetie.
Thank you.
Again, if we pay for it as taxpayers, it should not make people sick. And the 10th thing he wants to shut down or restrict is processed meats. So things like hot dogs, sausage, pepperoni, deli meats, and bacon. And the reason is that they have sodium nitrite or sodium nitrate in them, which is a synthetic preservative. And the problem here is that this synthetic preservative can turn into a carcinogen, a known carcinogen called nitrosamine, when exposed to acid or high heat. So we could get some of these harmful effects from stomach acid, but the much bigger effect would be when we expose it to high heat. So if we grill hot dogs, if we cook sausage, if we fry bacon, or throw pepperoni on the pizza, now it's exposed to very high temperatures and it can turn into these nitrosamines. And while I completely agree with Kennedy on this item, that there are tons of different deli meat products, processed meat products that are full of chemicals and full of junk, I do want to point out that it doesn't have to be that way. That there are companies that make deli meats without these things, that source the meats very naturally, that have organic and grass-fed products. And also, sometimes they include natural nitrites, and natural nitrites do not react the same way on the grill. And in addition to the sodium nitrite, these products very often have other chemicals and preservatives and additives as well. So Kennedy wants to stop these products in government-funded programs like schools and the SNAP, while the critics suggest that in doing that, he would be overstepping personal choice. And again, Kennedy suggests that tax money should not be promoting disease. And I would really want to question when you're talking about personal choices of 5-year-olds up to 18-year-olds. These are the ages where they eat school lunches. What sort of personal choices do they have about food? What do they know about food? Is it even on the agenda? It's like, how interested are kids in health and the healthfulness of food? Well, I'll answer it one way. So on my channel, the percentages of viewers that I have between ages 13 and 17 is 0.1%. 1 in 1,000 viewers is in that range, basically a teenager. And below that age, below 13, it is 0. None of those kids are watching health-related movies, at least not mine, but rather the people over 45 account for 74.4% of the viewers on this channel. And what that means is that these kids' parents aren't watching either. It's the grandparents that watch, because that's when you get old enough to start getting on some medication and start doubting your immortality, and you start having some issues to look out for. So if you are a grandparent, then watch these videos and then pass on that information to your kids. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love that one. And if you truly want to master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and turn on all the notifications so you never miss a life-saving video.
All right, guys. So for a lot of you, that was kind of your introduction into Dr. Ekberg, right? He's fucking based, buddy. Honestly, consider visiting this video, dropping him a like, maybe even subscribing to his channel. Like I said in the beginning, we got into keto, we got into fasting through this guy. And I think this was a good test. I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to make this content with you, and I think it could benefit you guys as well. We spread the knowledge, we help people to become better versions of themselves. We help to spread the content of these wonderful creators, and we're going to introduce you to more health-conscious creators over time. I think this was a wild success for us to come together and discuss things that really matter, you know? This is a mainstay for content for sure. How was your first stream, baby?
Oh God,
She's nervous.
I'm still nervous about it. I'm generally shy. I don't know how I feel about being on camera, but, you know, I like having the ability to speak on the topics.
Yeah, we're gonna put her hijab back on after this.
Oh God.
I'm joking. Yeah, this has been a really good experience. I want to thank you guys for chilling. Today we're streaming just like usual, so if you guys want to hang out in Pal World, I'll be there in a second. Anyway, guys, take care, rock on, and peace out, and we'll see you in the next one.
Oh, Slim, absolutely. Jordan Peterson is amazing. I freaking love the guy. He's lovely.
Indeed. Yeah. And his daughter Michaela being as outspoken as she is about the carnivore diet. Big W, buddy. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, they're doing God's work, and
they truly are.
They definitely deserve all the good things.
Yeah.
And Dr. Ekberg has a wellspring of amazing and important information, so
indeed.
Yeah, all these people that are spreading health consciousness are really important.
And it's amazing how many of them end up shamed for doing it.
Yeah.
So bring on the shame, baby. Anyway, I'll see you later, guys. Take care. Rock on.
Take care.